Hey, the Mets did something. So we finally have something to talk about that's actually productive and great for the Mets after what was a crazy, crazy week, one that will go down in history as one of the craziest weeks ever in the history of the Mets. So let's get right into it. Roll the music.
Orange and blue running through our veins, rooting for the Mets through incidents and pains. It's a Mets podcast hosted by Michael Bayside. His views and ideas are codified. Let's do saints, injuries and wins. We can't wait for the next game to begin. This is the theme song to the Mets podcast. This is the theme song to the Mets podcast.
Welcome to the Mike's Mets podcast. I'm your host, Mike Pashota, and hope everyone is having a wonderful Saturday. It's been, as I said in my intro, nutty, bizarre, crazy week that saw the Mets fail to re-sign two major departing free agents, Edwin Diaz and then Pete Alonso. They both stung. I talked about the Diaz signing already. If you haven't watched that, please do. And I didn't have a chance to talk about Alonso, which was a bummer. Unfortunately, these things happened in the middle of like my work week, and I just didn't have time to talk about it, and things were getting kind of crazy. So sadly, I didn't get to talk about it the day of. I wanted to, but by the time it happened, it was like well into the day at that point, so I didn't have a chance to discuss, sadly. But I have a chance to talk about it now. I understand why it happened, and understanding is part of it. I do like that I can work my way through the machinations and the points, the points that Stearns was making about, defense, and, we're not going to bring this guy back if he's not going to, sign for the amount of years that they wanted. I think kind of like harping on this, like it needs to be 2 or 3 years at the maximum for a contract to bring somebody in is not like a great way to do business. But it's Stearns' preference. It's if Cohen is backing him on this, particularly after Stearns was basically forced to do the contract for Soto, which was so many years. Definitely against Stearns' preference, I would assume. It now leads us to this situation where this offseason they're taking this much more conservative approach to offering out contracts, and the Mets made their offer. It was for fewer years and for a lot less money, as we understand it, and was not going to approach the contract offer that Alonso got from the Baltimore Orioles, which was ultimately 5 years, $150+ million. It's a chunk of change, and it's a lot of years for a player that is very quickly going rushing towards like a career DH role. But the Orioles they feel like they're in a position right now to win. The American League East is certainly weaker. The Red Sox and Yankees are not really forces, despite finishing first and second in the East this year. They can definitely be overtaken. The Orioles, wasn't that long ago that they were winning 100 games, 90+ games. And last year, they took a step backwards. There were a lot of injuries. They're hoping Alonso is kind of like the secret sauce here. I think Alonso's going to have a much worse year in Baltimore than he probably would have had in New York. That's just my assumption based on the fact that he's going to be switching from having Francisco Lindor and Juan Soto batting in front of him to Jackson Holliday and Gunnar Henderson. And Gunnar Henderson's obviously a really great player. Jackson Holliday might become a good player, but he's obviously very raw, as a work in progress, and there's a lot of years to go before he becomes a legitimate star in the same vein as someone like Lindor. But he's just I think he's just gonna have fewer opportunities to drive runners in. I don't know if Camden Yards is really is a ballpark that would fit. It would fit Alonso better in this situation than Citi Field. Citi Field, the dimensions just feel better for Alonso. I don't know. I might be wrong about that, but I'm curious to see how his production will either increase or decrease, and I think it will decrease. I think his RBI count's going to drop down significantly, and I think his home run count might also drop down significantly. I think he's going to be swinging for the fences a lot, and we've seen that's not really that shouldn't be Alonso's his go-to move. I would much prefer that he's hitting for average and trying to drive in runners with extra base hits rather than pulling the ball. When he pulls the ball, that's really the disaster that kind of happens with him. So I hope he doesn't do that. I do hope good things for Alonso. I would hope, that this isn't like a situation where he leaves and he wins a World Series title the next year. That would really sting, and I don't want that in the slightest. So if he's going there, I hope he contributes. Hope he got his money. I'm glad he got his contract. He had been waiting for that long-term deal for a long time, and he's getting paid a lot of money for it. It's probably an overpay, but the Orioles, they really needed a guy like that. So I totally get it, and we're very sorry to see Pico. He was one of my favorite Met players. There were certainly some times where it was more like a love-hate relationship, and any Met fans who were like, sad about it now, they were probably saying, very, very bad things about Alonso in 2024, when he was just really sucking all over the place. But he will go down as, an all-time great Met. The Mets, franchise home run leader, obviously, but also it's just a great clubhouse personality, was beloved by fans, and he really loved us all back. So I'm very sorry to see him go. Not as sorry to see Diaz go now that some of the things that he said came out, things like he wanted to play for a quote unquote winning organization, so basically just ring chasing in that case, and his this wasn't a situation where there was more money on the deal. He just wanted to leave. He just wanted to get a ring, and it's hard to fault him for that, but I'm not going to wish him well or congratulate him. You go to the Dodgers, I'm going to pretty much be rooting against you no matter what. So we'll see how his return to Citi Field is welcomed next year, if he ends up pitching against us at any point. But it's the Alonso thing was a hard pill to swallow, and it was just a disastrous 48 hours. Honestly, it was. As a Met fan, you really felt like the sky was falling. I was getting texts from pretty much everybody I knew who watches the Mets, and this was just it was a sky is falling type moment where it felt like, what are we doing? What are we doing here? Why how are we going to fix this? What are we going to do now? Can we do something, please? And that was just the main gist of it was basically, we need you to do something. And it took a few days. David Stern's finally putting pen to paper on a contract, thank God. We're very happy to see that the Mets have signed somebody. That's somebody that probably was high on people's lists, but it is a solid signing. So the Mets have come to a contract agreement with infielder Jorge Polanco. Polanco most recently on the Seattle Mariners, who was part of the Mariners' run in the second half and into the postseason. He was a vital contributor. Had a great year. This was probably his best year. Polanco's had an interesting career where he's kind of had these up and down moments, a lot of injuries, which I'm not really that jazzed about. But I'm hoping that their decisions, which appear to be right now, that they're going to be moving Polanco to DH. Might help with making sure that he gets injured less. That's just my hope. If he's less opportunities to play the field, then the better. There's also apparently the rumor that he's going to be playing a little bit of first base. To my knowledge, he has not really played first base that much. I think he saw a little bit in 2025 with the Mariners, but ultimately not that much. He's mostly a second baseman and shortstop for his career, but he is a dismal fielder. Not somebody that they want playing the field, and obviously he's not going to have a chance because he's going to have already Francisco Lindor and Marcus Semien playing second base and short, and they're moving those guys in there. So he should fit into DH, I think, pretty well. I think that's not a bad move on the part of Stearns. The offense, he contributes 26 home runs and 78 RBIs in 2025, finished with a slugging percentage of .495, 821 OPS, 134 OPS plus. So good numbers. He's just not his production is not going to like drive anybody crazy. He's a solid contributor who's going to fill probably Brandon Nimmo's role in the lineup pretty well. This is a switch hitter, but sees most of his action from the left-hand side of the bat, but can hit for power from the right-hand side. I think 21 of his 26 home runs came from the right-hand side. It came against right-handed pitchers. But he can hit against lefties also, obviously a switch hitter. So, he should fill into that role, I think, pretty well. And this is not like an out of the world signing. I think it's a solid move. It's not like the end all be all. I doubt this will be the last thing that Stearns does, obviously, because he still has a lot of work to do in filling in some roster holes. But this is okay. Like, you wanted me to do something? I'm doing something right now. This is it's not going to set anybody's hair on fire. This is not going to dazzle anybody. It's a solid move, and I appreciate it for what it is, which is just they did something, and I'm glad because it feels like it really did feel like there for a while that nothing was happening, and because nothing was happening, things are happening with other people, teams that we should be on the same level as, like the Dodgers and the Orioles. It did feel like nothing was going to be done for a good while. I'm just getting texts now just from people. It looks like my brother is texting me now, and he's not happy. But yeah. We're going to kind of play this one by ear in terms of how important it ends up being. He had this was his numbers aren't going to like jump off the bat. He had a really good offensive year for the Mariners, and that's saying something because the Mariners are obviously playing in a major pitcher's park. But his power doesn't really like translate that much to Citi Field. I'm reading now based on his Baseball Savant stats. I think he'll see probably a power decrease. So 26 home runs, maybe closer to 20 or 21. In 2026, but again, playing a DH, if he's playing the majority of his time there, that's good. First base, we'll see how that goes. I'm interested to see how that plays out because they were floating earlier the offseason the trade possibility for Wilson Contreras, which is for the Cardinals first baseman, and Contreras, a much better defender. I wonder if that still is in play, or if the asking price was too high for Contreras. Maybe that they wanted to move on to Polanco as a potential first base option / DH. And is the platoon with Jeff McNeil still a viable option here? I know that was the other things that they floated with the Paul Goldschmidt and Jeff McNeil being a platoon option. So there's just basically been a flurry of rumors now. Polanco was not on anybody's like radar really of like a potential Met target here. So take what you will from like the Goldschmidt and Contreras rumors and speculation that those guys might have been on the move to New York also. But let's work it from now and say like let's assume that the Mets infield is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of Polanco at first base, maybe Jeff McNeil platooning with him at first, and then maybe Marfiento's taking some time at DH also, shortstop Lindor and Semien in second base. But it's gonna be interesting to see how they put all those guys together. I'm at least intrigued. I'll say that this is like I don't really know what the direction they're going at this point, and I would say like Polanco is it's a decent move. It's a solid move. I don't have any problems with it. It's not an end all be all type situation, and I hope that this is just one move. It's like the opening salvo of a flurry of moves that are probably going to be coming from Stearns, which is signing relievers, signing starters, hopefully, and signing somebody who can kind of fill that left field hole and first base hole, which are now like much more pronounced. Like now they have to get things done with Alonso out. They gotta find somebody who can match his production potentially. And if that's Cody Bellinger, that would be my ideal target. I'm kind of putting everything now on the Bellinger type of move. I don't really feel it's likely that they're going to sign Kyle Tucker. But I'm happy to be proven wrong. My assumption would be Bellinger is the one that Stearns is really interested in getting based on his defensive flexibility and his ability to play all three outfield positions in a pinch. And I've said this all before. I'm not going to go into it again, but Bellinger feels like Stearns is that's the guy that he really wants. And Alonso was more of a like, well, we'll put our offer in, but we're not going to be that interested in re-signing him, and ultimately played out exactly like that. For starting pitching options, it also doesn't look like Framber Valdez is going to be coming here. Again, prove me wrong, Stearns and Cohen, but it looks like Valdez is going to be wanting minimum 4 or 5 years, and Stearns is probably going to go 3 maximum for Valdez. And again, drawing a hard line in the sand, I don't think is a great way to do business, but if that's what his direction is, then that's fine. My inkling is that he's going to be focused much more on a trade option to acquire a potential ace, and sadly, it's not going to be Tarek Skubal. For Met fans who were holding out hope for it, you can stop holding out hope. It's just going to require like an absolute king's ransom level of prospects, and you would know, of course, it would definitely have to require Nolan McLean. And if that's, and I for me, for one, I'm not trading Nolan McLean for anything. I'm sorry, even Paul Skeens, I would not trade Nolan McLean for him. Nolan McLean just looks way too polished, way too good, and seems to have all the skills needed to be a potential top of the rotation starter. Nolan McLean should be a absolute. We're not dealing with this guy. Everybody else in that farm system, fine. You go ahead and trade most of these guys off. I feel like they can be useful if acquiring a legitimate player. And I think the guy that Stearns really has his eye on would be Freddie Peralta, the Brewers ace. And Peralta, he's had an interesting career, not similar to Polanco, where he's been solid, but he's kind of blossomed most recently with in 2025 with the Brewers, where he really dazzled. He became an ace level pitcher, finished 5th in Cy Young voting in 2025, and that's obviously an accomplishment right there. But he's been quietly one of the more underrated starters in the National League and really for the majors overall. A very good strikeout pitcher. If you put him among the best strikeout per 9 innings pitchers in baseball, he ranks up at their, I think, minimum 800 innings pitched among active players. He is 4th behind only Chris Sale, Dylan Cease, and someone else. I don't remember the last person, but 3 very impressive pitchers, and obviously Peralta being in there, he seems to have kind of reached a new level. His ERA not as impressive with the FIP attached to it. He does give up some home runs, over 20 home runs usually a season, but mostly it's his walks. He's a little bit wild. There are times where he can be walking 3 or 4 guys a game, but you counterbalance that with the amount of strikeouts that he racks up, over 200 last season, despite pitching only around 170 innings, and he has 1,100 plus strikeouts and just a little over 800 innings pitched, or closer to 900 innings pitched, or somewhere around there. So this is a guy who has wipeout stuff, and if there's one thing we know about Stearns is that he definitely prizes these former Milwaukee guys, guys who he has relationships with, like Devin Williams, like Tyron Taylor. You can go through it. There's been a lot of guys who have been through the Milwaukee system and who've ended up now in the Mets. And so if he knows he has these connections to these guys, there's a likelihood that he knows a little bit more. He can make the deals get done in these cases. Peralta is going to be a free agent after 2026, so his asking price is going to be pretty high. And obviously they have to get an extension done also. So if the deal has to be done, I would say trade Brandon Sproat and trade maybe one or two other position prospects, maybe someone in the vein of Luis Angel Acuna or maybe AJ Ewing, and maybe another pitcher. Maybe it's like a Jonathan Santucci type of pitching prospect. But the Mets obviously have such a loaded farm system and so many like viable arms in there that they can deal some of these guys out here, and it wouldn't really make that much of a dent in terms of their pitching depth here. They have so many really interesting prospects that are coming through that have middle of the rotation potential, top of the rotation potential. There's really like a sky's the limit type of situation. So dealing Sprout, who a lot of scouts have viewed as a minimum like number 3 or 4 starter. His potential there, adding him, and maybe some. And again, he'll probably take a good amount of prospects. I don't think you need to trade Jonah Tong. I don't think you have to trade Carson Benj, and I wouldn't recommend trading either of them, especially not Noel McLean. But you can definitely get a deal done for probably at least one or two of those guys, and probably around 3 or 4 prospects in total for someone like Peralta, and maybe if they throw there's also a reliever there that the Mets might be interested in with the last name McGill, so Trevor McGill, brother of Tyler McGill, and Trevor McGill, the much more successful brother of the two of them. McGill would be a really good get as a late inning option. I wouldn't be mad at that either. So maybe if the Mets are interested in making a deal with the Brewers for someone like Peralta, maybe they can get somebody like McGill. They have the prospect depth. I think they have players that would interest the Brewers. And again, Stearns knows the Milwaukee farm system really well, so he knows who to get, who they are really in need of acquiring in these situations. So I would not be mad at acquiring Peralta. I think he's a really good top of the rotation starter. Pairing him with David Peterson and Noel McLean at the top of the rotation, and then what you get with the other rotation guys. Maybe Sean Manaea has a much better year. Maybe we see Jonah Tong, debut again and pitch much better this year. Or maybe Kodai Senga brings it back. Who knows? But at least one really good top rotation starter, which Peralta is, could definitely help this team make things happen in 2026. So here's hoping. But I feel a little bit more enthused. I feel a little bit more better now that the Mets have actually done something, and let's hope that we're going in the right direction here. If there's nothing else happening today, then maybe next week we get to see a little bit more. Maybe there is a Cody Bellinger signing. Maybe there's a big trade for someone like Freddie Peralta to the Mets make, and that can go a long way towards infusing some goodwill back into it, because I know for right now Mets fans are not happy with Stearns. I know they're not happy with Cohen, and they're looking for things to kind of be redirected in a much more positive way, and here's hoping that's happening very soon. Thank you for listening to Mike's Mets podcast. If you haven't already, please follow us on Spotify and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Leave a like and a comment. It helps so much. Finally, please follow our Twitter and Blue Sky pages. You can find us at Twitter at Mike's Mets Pod, all one word, and on Blue Sky at Mike's Mets Podcast.bsky.social. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day or evening, and let's go Mets.